When you considered suicide that day in the bathroom, can you describe the feeling and the thoughts? What was that like in those moments?
Yeah, first of all, leading up to that, my first thoughts of suicide, Jesse, was actually at age 8. And it was because bullying was prevalent in just like any other school. But it felt like the whole world was against me because I didn't have what the whole world had. I also had, even though loving parents, I also felt like the isolation factor and looking ahead in my life thinking, who's going to want to marry me? Who's going to want to employ me?
Yeah.
I'm always just going to be a dependent on somebody else. And maybe I'm just a burden to everyone. If I'm just going to be bullied for the rest of my life and no one has any answers for me, what's the point of continuing life and living on? And so at age 8, I was on the kitchen counter watching my mum cook. I used to love doing that. Just watching her was so therapeutic for me. But then I realized one day after bullying at school, I'm like, what if I just jump off the kitchen counter and try just go head first, snap my neck, and then just try kill myself? But then I heard of some people who snap their neck and they're still alive. So that wouldn't be. So I started thinking through this. And I'm thinking, I know what I could do. I could drown myself. And 2 years later, I actually told my dad, Dad, can I go into the bathtub? I just want to soak in there for a little bit. And as he closed the door, I was in my bathtub, and it was the first time I'd ever seen my bathtub as my coffin. I was so angry at life. I was so alone, and I felt like there was no hope for me. And as I turned over, I tried to let water come into my lungs. And it's very scary trying to take your own life. And letting air come into my lungs, and then just a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline. And then on the third time, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to do it. I was stopped with one thought in my mind. What if I actually went through with it? What would my parents feel like? They did nothing but love me.
Yeah.
They did nothing but say, you're beautiful, you're special, God's got a plan for you. And I didn't want to leave them with that pain. And I didn't go through with that suicide. The first turning point out of that depression wasn't some kind of magic wand. I needed time. I needed to really start to believe that I had something to be thankful for apart from my family. And my first turning point was actually playing soccer, hurting my foot so bad I couldn't walk. I have a little left 6-inch appendage to the bottom left of my torso that's called my foot. I have a heel and 2 toes, which now I can type 53 words a minute on a normal computer.
Yeah, I saw
And at
that.
age 13, I was in bed for 3 weeks, and I realized, wow, I have a choice. Either to be angry for what I don't have or be thankful for what I do have. And that was the first mental shift of the attitude of gratitude that helped me to get out of that depression.
So when you got in the bathtub and you drank the water, did someone come in and save you from it, or how did you overcome that?
So what happened was I let water come in, coughed it back out twice, and then I'm talking to myself. I'm like, you know what? I got to do this. You got to do this. There is no hope. And I went over, filled my lungs up back again, and that at that moment, when I was trying to let the water in my lungs the third time, that's when I stopped and I was able to cough it back out. And I didn't tell anyone that I actually attempted suicide until much later on in life.
Oh, I see.
I told my brother, who was 8 at the time, that I think at 21 years old, I told my brother I might then end my life because I could see myself going through school, but after school, I feel like there was no purpose for me at all. And so he told Dad. I said, don't tell Dad. My dad came in, and I'll never forget it. He came and he said, what's this? You want to kill yourself? And he put his hand on my face. He said, look, don't worry. Just don't give up.
Yeah,
Don't give up. Know that we love you.
amazing. Were you hearing voices in your head telling you that it was not worth living?
Absolutely.
And
Um,
and did the voices sound like your voices, or what convention? It sounded like your voices telling you that you were telling yourself that.
That's an interesting question, Jesse. I think that there were two different voices. First of all, I always tell people that we think that we may have the 3 people that we can identify as the biggest encouragers in our life and the 3 biggest discouragers in our life. But the truth is, we are our biggest encourager and discourager. We allow people. So the first voices that I heard were actually the taunts and bullying and teasing that I heard at school. I could hear those people's voices in my head, where it only took about 2 or 3 seconds for them to give me the look, give me the eye, shun me away, or tell me something that I then went home and let repeat in my head again and again and again and
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And then you have your voice, where based on what you feel, based on what you know, and based on what you see, you then make conclusions that are based on fear. Now, not all fear is bad. Jesse, you know that. We've got rational fear, but then we got irrational fear. It is the moment where my parents saw me and the doctor said, sorry, we didn't give you a chance to abort your child because he's never going to walk, he's never going to go to school, he's never going to have a good life. And my parents, though, chose to embrace me as I am. Whenever they saw me was when I was already born, but they said, but we would have embraced you anyway. For me, it's me embracing me. And when I embrace me, then that's when people see that if I have a self-acceptance, if I'm embracing my situation and my value as a human being, it helped. But the only way to do that was actually to get rid of those voices that were in my voice, saying the negative things, holding those thoughts captive, taking it out, and then replacing with my own voice something good. And one thing that I did at age 6 was I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, Nick, and I said, yes, there are people who tease you for how you look. There's got to be something good about you. Look at your eyes. Your eyes are the windows to your soul. And no matter how different you may look on the outside,
Yeah.
when they're looking in the eyes and you look at them in the eyes, you've got beautiful eyes and you're a beautiful soul no matter what they say. And I'll never forget, someone said, when the world is not good enough, get a second opinion. The problem is when we ourselves let our own voices tell us we're not good enough. And that is the thing that I try to break chains of in minds and hearts all around the world.
I know that you are an evangelist, and which means that you have read the Bible, right? You read the Bible before,
Plenty
and
of times, yes. And every day I try to read a little bit because I need him a lot more today than in good
have
days.
you ever read in the Bible that you to bring every thought into captivity, that you are not your thoughts, that they are not from you, they are not from God. God's voice is a voiceless voice. He revealed, and Satan talked to you. He imitates you or whomever, and so, but because you identify with those voices, you think that they're your own. But Satan is imitating you, sounding like you. So when you listen to those voices, the real you is listening to the not you, and you should not do that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that you bring that up because we know that God is real and we know that the devil is real. There are
Right.
angels and principalities of darkness, and I've seen them actually. And I've seen demons in my life. I've gone around the world and I've seen witchcraft and I've seen exorcisms. I've seen miracles as well. God actually even healed a hollowing in my spine years ago, and I know that He's real. And as I read the Bible, you're right, we know that it's his gentle voice. I've never heard the audible voice of God, and I've never heard the audible voice of the devil, but we do know it's against powers and principalities of darkness. And that's why I read my Bible, because I know that there's only one way to fight the lies that I'm ugly, that there is no hope. It's with the truth that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that I'm not alone. And I just want to say this to you, Jesse. You know, when I go around the world and I meet many people, I never tell people that I understand their pain. I tell teenagers all the time that I believe it's worse being in a broken home than having no arms and legs. And I don't know how it feels to be in a broken home. But I came across a little boy with no arms and no legs during a speech. And that's when I realized, wow, I know that I don't hold the pen in my hand. If I had the pen in my hand, I would be in full control of my destiny and my future. I don't have that. And that's when I surrender it to God, and where I can say, hey, my history is then his story to help someone else. And I'll never forget how that little boy with no arms and no legs was encouraged because he sees Uncle Nick just like him. And I thought to myself so many times at school, why can't I just meet someone else like me so then I know that I'm not alone? How cool would it be if a limbless speaker came to my school and told everyone to shut their mouth and stop bullying me? Well, I didn't get that miracle, but I became that miracle for little Daniel. And Jesse, I believe we all can be a helping hand and a miracle for someone else.
I agree.